Okay, so in today's video, I want to sit down and talk about something that's been buzzing all over the leak community lately, Columbina. And yeah, I know we've talked about her before, but this time it's her actual kit leaks that are making people lose their minds. Some of this is coming from that Q&A style info dump that's been going around, and some of it is just player reactions, memes, and speculation on top of it. So take all of this with a grain of salt, since things can still change in beta. But if it even ends up being half true, Colombina could completely change how we look at not just Nodcry teams, but the balance of reactions overall. Buy 6,480 Genesis crystals with 6.0 limited pack for only $79 at lootbar.gg. Returning users can also grab an extra coupon for up to 5% off. Link in the description. Let's start with the big headline. Columbina is apparently shaping up to be one of those hybrid units that Hoyoverse loves to experiment with. At Constellation 0, her baseline role looks like it's going to be support-focused. She can supposedly trigger all the lunar reactions by herself without needing to slot in every other Nodcry character just to make them happen. That's already a big deal because it means she can act as an enabler in teams that want to try out the new reaction system without being completely locked into very specific rosters. And on top of that, she provides what the leaks describe as terrifying buffs. That phrase has become kind of a meme in itself. People in the comments were joking like, "What is this? Plus 1,000% critical damage if you've got a brother on the team?" Obviously, that's not literal, but it tells you how hyped and also how nervous people are about how far Hoyoverse might push her. Then there's her elemental burst, and this is one that caught my attention because it immediately got compared to Nahida. The leak said her burst is like Nahida opening a domain, basically creating a field that empowers allies and reactions. If you've played Nahida, you know exactly how big that can be for team synergy, a persistent area of effect that just sets the stage for everything else. It makes me wonder if they're really going to give her that same sort of team-wide, long-lasting field treatment, because that's one of the strongest design archetypes in the game. Nahida's burst is what elevates her from being a strong dendro applier into a literal Archon-level must-have. If Columbina's burst is even half as impactful, we're looking at someone who might anchor entire teams around her. But here's where things get more complicated. According to the leaks, Columbina at higher constellations, think C2 and beyond, starts transitioning from a pure support into a main DPS. And when I say main DPS, I mean the on-field character that carries your team's DMG output. Her personal damage scaling supposedly ramps up massively once you start unlocking those constellations, and that's where she becomes a true carry. But there's a catch. Her effectiveness seems to be tied to how many Nodcry characters you run alongside her. So the more of them you have in the party, the stronger she gets. That sounds powerful, but also restrictive. If you don't want to build around Nodcry, then her main DPS potential might never really open up. And that has a lot of players worried. People are already calling it locked by quantity, meaning you're not just investing into Columbina herself, you're potentially investing into an entire faction. If you're free to play or low spender, that sounds like a nightmare. Because suddenly, you're not just chasing one unit, you're chasing a whole group of characters just to unlock her full potential. It reminds me a little bit of what happened with Nuvolette and Furina back in Fontaine, where individually, they were great, but together, they completely broke the game. The difference here is that it's not one synergy partner, it's a whole roster of them. Now here's one of the more controversial parts of her design. There is no Lunar Vaporize. That's something the community has been buzzing about ever since lunar reactions were teased. People thought we'd get a lunar version of Vaporize, which could have been insane if it worked like traditional vape scaling. But the leaks are very clear. Colombina does not provide any Lunar Vape interaction. She still gives normal buffs, and she still levels up other moon reactions, but that one in particular is missing. And the general consensus is that this is intentional. It looks like Hoyoverse wants to avoid buffing Nouvelette even further or creating another Pyro-dominated meta. Some players are upset because they wanted to see her turbocharge Pyro comps. Others are relieved, saying, "Good, no more Pyro favoritism." Honestly, I kind of see both sides. On one hand, Pyro reactions have been at the top for so long, and it's refreshing to see something different. On the other, it feels a little weird to deliberately leave out one of the most iconic reaction archetypes. She does, however, bring some very strong debuffs to the table. One of the details that keeps coming up is that Colombina reduces all element resistance by 15%, and the kicker is that she herself counts as a Hexenzirkel member, so just by existing she applies that shred. If you pair her with other Hexenzirkel characters, you can stack even more. Think about how valuable Universal Resistance Shred is. Right now, the Viridescent Venerer set is the king of resistance shred for an emo, and it only works on certain elements. Colombina doing it for every element could be massive. People are already worried this could power creep Viridescent Venerer into irrelevance. That might be an exaggeration, but the concern makes sense, especially since Resistance Shred multiplies every other source of DMG in your team. And then there's the bigger design picture. When you look at Colombina's leaks, she really does fit into what I'd call the Archon playbook. Nahida, Raiden, Furina, they all launched as units that could serve as support at C0, but scaled into ridiculous main DPS roles with Constellations. The leaks about Colombina sound almost identical. Strong support field, reaction enabler at baseline, then a constellation-gated powerhouse carry if you're willing to spend. It's a model that's worked for Hoyoverse before, and if you follow the historical pattern, it makes sense they'd repeat it for someone as important as a top 3 Harbinger. The player reactions to all this have been mixed. To put it lightly, some people are hyped, saying she'll be the Archon-level meta-centerpiece of Nod Cry. Others are frustrated, worried that she's going to be locked behind expensive constellations and faction synergy. And then you've got the memes. Terrifying buffs has already turned into a joke. Scaramouche mains latched onto that one line about his boost not being high, prepare mentally, and they're taking it as the ultimate cope. Albedo mains are joking that Duran's constellation only benefiting him is the ultimate brother complex. And somehow Colombina got dragged into that whole discourse too. It's funny, but it also shows how nervous people are about Hoyoverse locking characters into hyper-specific whale-heavy builds. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, because I'm really curious where people land on this one. Anyway, that's everything we've got so far about Colombina's leaked kit. Remember, none of this is final until it shows up in beta. And even then, numbers can and do change. But the direction she's going in is clear. A support-first, Archon-level design with the potential to become a monster DPS at high constellations. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay updated on more leaks, lore, and meta talk, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more coming as we get closer to next patch, and you won't want to miss it. Buy 6,480 Genesis crystals with 6.0 limited pack for only $79 at lootbar.gg. Returning users can also grab an extra coupon for up to 5% off. Link in the description.